Hello everyone, Mollusk here. Today bringing you my first Triumph and Treachery battle report. So as you can see, I'm playing my Beastmen against the Dark Elves, Warriors of Chaos and Dwarves. I don't think there was any specific objective for this battle other than just get the most gold. So for deployment, I set up third after the Warriors of Chaos and the Dwarves, and before the Dark Elves. I arrived a little bit late to the game after work, so I just threw down my stuff in a straight line without really thinking too much about what was going to happen. Obviously, I didn't know where the Dark Elves were going to go, and yeah, I tried to put my Gore units with the level 2 Bray Shaman out of line of sight of these horrible looking cannons, and put my Razor Gore in a position I hoped would be useful to chaff up some things and get my Minotaurs a decent charge. I have another unit of 20 Gore being held back in ambush because I thought, hey, that might be quite fun. Hopefully turn up behind a cannon and get those points. So obviously the Dark Elf player took advantage of the gaping hole in my behind my lines and stuck his shades there. I think these Darkriders Vanguard moved into that position. So what I think we're facing here are a unit of Cold One Knights, which I think has his Dreadlord in it. Some kind of Cold One chariot with nobles with crossbows in it. The big monster that's not the Hydra, I can't remember its name, the Charybdis, something like that. On the Chaos side, as far as I know, there are two hordes of warriors. I think this was the wizard, I'm not quite sure what he did. And then I think that was a Chimera. The Dwarves had a cannon that was just off the screen, this organ gun, and then this block of, I think, Longbeards with a runesmith and a guy standing on shields, which I was to learn from observation, thankfully, are extremely nasty. So, turn 1. Rather fortunately, my card was drawn to go first, and I charged this Razor Gore into the chariot. I charged the Minotaurs into the great big snaky thing, head thing. I moved this Razor Gore over to here, facing in this direction. My thinking here being to prevent a flanking charge from the what are they called? Cold One Knights. My Gore decided to ignore the shades and just shuffle up a little bit close to those ruins and wait to see if any opportunities emerged from what looked to be a Dwarf on Chaos Warrior combat about to happen. In the magic phase, my Shaman cast Wissen's Wild Form on the Minotaurs and Pan's Impenetrable Pelt on himself. For no other reason really than I just wanted to see if I could do it, and who knew what would happen in the subsequent turns. And so on to combat. The Razor Gore did a wound to the chariot and took nothing in return, but the chariot passed its leadership test, which was fine. The Gorball in the Minotaurs did a few wounds to the head snaky monster with his initiative 10. I forgot that he was strength 6 and frenzied though. Oh well. The Minotaurs, who remembered their strength 6 and frenzy, then tore the beast to bloody chunks, and it was glorious. But not before one of their number succumbed to its flailing heads. They overran and hit the building a bit, and so stopped where they are. So very happy with that performance. Those Minotaurs hit like a ton of bricks, and it was a guilty pleasure to see the raised eyebrows on some of the other players' faces when they saw what they could do. So next up was the Dark Elves, and you can see this hand in motion moving the Dark Riders behind my Minotaurs to do some shooting. Behind that hand, the Cold One Knights flank charged the Razorgore in combat with the Chariot. A good move by my opponent. And so, very suddenly, we're at the most crucial point of the battle for the Beastmen. As the Cold One Riders swung round into the flank of the Razorgore fighting the Chariot, they came into contact with the second Razorgore, which was actually here facing this way. So the Razorgore was mostly on their flank. We didn't really know how, and the base contact was perfect. It was really odd how it worked out so precisely. So we were a bit unsure about how to handle this, but in the end we moved the Razorgore round to the front to maximise. So I'd be quite interested to know if that's the right way to do things here. Now, I think this highlights quite an important mistake I made. So if this second Razorgore had been slightly further back, it would not have been involved in the charge of the Cold One Knights, and would have been there to protect the Minotaur's flank should they have overrun. As it is, I'm now counting on them not to die and not to run away, to prevent the Cold Ones from overrunning into the Minotaurs. Now, just to up the stakes a bit, my Dark Elf opponent had mentioned to me that he was fairly happy that my Minotaurs couldn't really manoeuvre, couldn't charge past the building into his Dark Elf crossbowmen, and I'm pretty sure it would have been too awkward to charge the Chariot. Being a bit of a bastard, I neglected to tell him that I was planning to charge my Gorbor out of the unit into the crossbowmen and then hide the Minotaurs in the building, which I think could have been quite nice. I'm fairly sure the Gorbor will have gone to town on those archers, and being in the building would give me a lot of options in terms of charging into the Chaos Warriors or charging back out into the Cold One Knights or Chariots or whatever presented itself. So I was really looking forward to what would happen with those Minotaurs next turn. But that would all go to pot if those Cold One Knights got into my flank. Oh, and this is a rather neater picture of that situation. I probably should have been talking over this one. So in the magic phase, the Dark Elf Sorceress cast the Miasma spell, which reduced my weapon skill, ballistic skill, initiative and movement by 3, and I was unable to dispel it. And then he cast the Withering on the Minotaurs as well, which lowered their toughness by 1. So they are now toughness 3. Thank you, Games Workshop, for toughness yes, for that logical decision making as to the Minotaur's toughness. So yeah, so currently, or they will be the same toughness as Elves in my next turn. In the shooting phase, the Darkriders failed to wound any of the Minotaurs, and the Shades killed 3 or 4 of the Gore from my unit there by the ruin. In combat, sad face. The Raised Gore fighting the chariot was smooshed. The Raised Gore fighting on the flank side survived the charge with 1 wound, failed to do any damage back, and got eaten by a big lizard. This oh no, he didn't. He actually survived and then ran away, even with the reroll. And the Cold War Knights charged into my Minotaur's flank. So when I say even with the reroll there, he did need double 1s in order to stay, due to wounds and flank charges and ranks and banners and whatever else have you. So here's a point that might be controversial. Leadership with the Beastmen. So established wisdom says very clearly that you need to pump that leadership up as high as you can and keep everything in the bubble of the general and the BSB. Now, BSB bubble, definitely 100% behind that. However, the highest leadership in this army is leadership 7. Both the Bray Shaman and the Gorball have this, as well as all the Gores, in fact. Now, obviously, 7 is the average dice roll on 2 dice. And before this game, I decided to do a little test run. So I rolled 2 dice 100 times and compared what the results would be with Leadership 7 versus Leadership 8. I found that 11 times out of 100, Leadership 8 with a reroll passed a check that a Leadership 7 with the reroll would have failed. 7 times out of 100 in my test, neither Leadership 7 nor Leadership 8 made a difference. So I decided to stick with Leadership 7, as more often than not it seemed to do the job and allowed me the points to do what I wanted with the army. I can't speak for the Leadership 9 that the Beast Lord will bring. Perhaps if you also put the special banner in that unit, the Leadership 10. I don't know if it increases the usefulness 10% each time. I haven't crunched the numbers. But yeah, so I lost this combat by about 9, I think. And so even with Leadership 10, there's really not a very good chance that I'm going to be staying. So I'm going to put it out there and say, maybe this high leadership's not all it's cracked up to be. And the flexibility and fun you can get out of saving those points and putting them into different places maybe could be worth it. I could be completely wrong and being a complete fool, basing this on not enough evidence, but I'm going to keep with this and just make a note of when it would actually have been important to have a leadership above leadership 7. So on to Chaos Warriors' turn. The Chimera charged the cannon and got in. The Warriors both declared charge on the Dwarf. I think they declared a charge on the Dwarf brick unit. Both of them failed. I don't remember the magic phase, but I don't think it did anything. And in combat, the Chimera ate the cannon and I think shuffled along a bit. Couldn't turn because of the table edge. Yeah. In the Dwarven retaliation turn, the Longbeard brick charged the centermost warrior horde, and the organ gun turned to face the other one and was about to fire when the Dark Elf player pulled a Treachery card and prevented it. I think there was a little bit of connivance going on between those two on that side of the board. In combat, the Chaos Warriors chopped down 4 of the Dwarves, but the long and the short of it, hey, was that the Dwarves broke and ran and slaughtered the entire Horde. And yeah, that was quite a sight to see. Lots of gold for the Dwarven player, and as I think he said, he needed their armour to make a new cannon. And that's a picture of that combat there, with the Beastmen looking on, munching some popcorn. Yeah. And that's what it looked like when the Dwarves overran. This unit of warriors is no longer there. Completely wiped out. Oh, and it looks like the Dwarves took 5 casualties, not 4. And so began round 2. I drew the card to go first again, and my second unit of Beastmen rolled a 6 to come on behind the Dark Elves. I tried to buff my Minotaurs back up with some extra toughness and strength, but my opponent played his Treachery card, which meant that my magic phase was shut down because I only have 1 caster. Very good play on his part. So with the Cold One Riders charging in the flank, the Gorbel made way to the front, bellowing a challenge to the Dreadlord, who, like a spineless cur, refused and went to the back. Now I think with Initiative 7, Initiative 10 minus 3, the Gorbel went first in combat and killed 1 Cold One Knight, because he had to, I think he was hitting on 5s because of that weapon skill debuff. And sadness that there's no Primal Fury on the on Minotaurs. I had forgotten that they get an extra attack for having won the previous combat, but I don't think it would have made any difference in this case. So next he took most of a unit of lances to the face. I think it was 8 attacks in the end went on him. And he did incredibly well. The 2-up save, I think, was down to a 5-up. Of 6 wounds, I saved 3 of them, leaving him with 1 wound left and giving him a few more attacks, which the Ramhorn helmet provides, but unfortunately didn't get through their armour this time. The remaining Cold War Knights managed to wound another Minotaur, and then the Cold Ones did another, I can't remember how many, it must have been It was a fair number. Have they got 2 attacks each? On the Gorbel, who got I think it was something like six more, saved 6 more armor saves, and so he got more attacks, and unfortunately didn't do any more wounds. So the Cold Ones won by a lot, and I think we needed something like 2 or a 3 to stay, and we unfortunately did not pass our leadership test and got run down, and that is upsetting. There we go. That's how that looked. So just to note the positioning of my what's it called, ambushing Gore unit. I put them on like this, hoping that the Minotaurs would hold, thinking to charge into the chariot, and then hopefully overrun into the Cold War Knights if all went ridiculously well. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. In the Dwarven turn, I think they just turned around, and nothing else happened. The Dark Elf player went next and turned the Cold Ones around to face the Gore coming in from the rear, manoeuvred the Dark Riders nicely to disrupt charges, charged the Shades and the Chariot into my other Gore block. The Chariot allocated all its impact hits on the Shaman, which I didn't know you could do, but to be honest, it doesn't make any difference. In the end, I don't think the Shades killed anyone, or if they did, they didn't kill very many. The Gore pulled down 1 Shade, the Chariot killed some more Gore, and the Gore did nothing in return to the Chariot. So in the end, they lost combat, needed double 1s, I think because my opponent played a card which ignored my ranks and banners, and they were run down. And that's what that looked like. I've just realised that on top of forgetting the extra attack the Minotaurs had for winning the first combat against the monster, I also forgot that they have Stomp, which I think works on cavalry, which could have made a difference, I don't know. But yeah, I'm an idiot. So in the final player turn of turn 2, the Chaos Warriors tried to shimmy a little bit out of the Dwarves' charge arc, and we had a bit of a laugh because unfortunately this one guy on the end was still within the charge arc of the Dwarven unit, which I'm sure was quite tense for the Chaos player. The Manticore swiveled round and got into position to draw the organ gun's attention away from the warriors and hopefully charge it if it survived. So at the start of turn 3, I got to go first again. I don't know who was shuffling those cards. The Gore unit decided to try to go for glory. I declared a charge at the Dark Riders. Predictably, they fled and got away. And I tried to redirect into the Cold Ones, just to get a bit of revenge for what they did to the Minotaurs. But I failed the leadership test required to do so on an 11. So leadership 7, still, you know, what I said about that before. And so basically my goatees reminded me of what the Cold Ones had done to the Minotaurs, and so they weren't having any of that. Thinking about it now, I wonder if the smarter decision would have been to redirect, if I could, into the crossbowmen in the building. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I should have done that had I been thinking properly. Turns are speeding up a bit now. The Dwarves failed their charge into the Chaos Warriors, and the organ gun also failed to kill the Chimera, if I remember correctly. I don't know whether it was just an awful round of shooting or someone played some kind of treachery card, but there you go. In the Chaos turn... Oh, this might have been... No. Anyway, in the Chaos Warriors turn, I think the guy offered to pay someone for a treachery card that would mess with shooting. So this might have been in the... Oh, I can't remember. And I said I had one, and he paid me, and I gave him the card, and it wasn't the one he needed. I didn't think there'd been enough treachery in this game, and I feel a bit bad about it. But to be honest, the card I thought it wasn't that card anyway. So yeah, comedy of errors there. But in the end, I got some more money and gave someone a useless card. Hey, we're Chaos. So in his turn, the Chaos Warrior General charged into the Dwarves. It was a head-on fight, despite the direction those Dwarves appear to be facing. And again, history repeated itself, where the whole unit got butchered. Lost so many guys. The Dwarves just kept on hitting, and the guy was really unlucky with his armor saves, it seemed. Yeah, so those Dwarves really pack a punch. It's a small consolation, I guess. I think the Chimera, which had survived the organ gun, charged and ate its crew. In the Dark Elf player's turn, he declared me as his enemy in the movement, and the Cold Ones paired to charge and horribly eviscerate the Gore, but then realised what good buddies they would make when I played an Alliance Treachery card, which forced him to choose another opponent. And I don't believe he made any charges. In the Magic phase, the Sorceress blew up. She didn't die, but she took a fair number of crossbowmen out. And in the shooting phase, the Dark Elves shot off the Chimera and claimed some more booty. I think I tried to play a treachery card to stop them from shooting, or I think it was the itchy powder which made it harder to shoot. I wasn't really paying attention when I was playing it, as I was packing up my models at the same time, and I played it as he was declaring shooting on the Dark Riders, so it didn't do anything because of their fast cavalry. I think the Dwarf player also tried to bribe a unit not to shoot because he wanted to charge with his dwarves. So he gave up some money to do that, but then it turned out that the dwarves wouldn't have been able to charge anyway, and the other unit finished off the Chimera. So it was I think it was very close in points between the dwarf player and the dark elf player, but in the end that Chimera kill edged it over the top in the favour of the dark elves, and so we called the game here. The dark elves had the most gold at the end, so they were the victors. Dwarves were next, and then me, and unfortunately the Chaos Warriors took a bit of a pasting in this game. But I think the way this works is that it only matters if you're the winner. Yeah, so really fun game. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully play lots more Triumph and Treachery. I think lessons to be learned from this battle for me are you have to be so careful where you place the chaff and really look ahead to see what your opponent can potentially do, and remember your own rules. I forgot too many attacks from those Minotaurs. I don't think it would have shifted the game balance, but it could have. Who knows? So yeah, that is also something to bear in mind. That's it, and thank you for watching.